Hi guys, and welcome to this video. This is Jamie from System22 and GreatWebDesign.com. This is the fourth in our series of create a one-page scrolling Bootstrap site. In the last video we styled our nav bar up here. In this video we're going to go ahead and style our hero section. And you may say, what is a hero section? Well, it's the first section that you see. It's above the fold, and that's an old newspaper term. When newspapers were delivered, they used to be folded in half, and above the fold meant it was on the bit that you could see on top. But in our case, above the fold means everything that's presented on the screen when you first look at a website. So it's this area right here. So first thing I want to do is put a background image in here to make it stand out. So if we open our folder here, and let's go ahead and open our index.html file, which is the only one we've been working on HTML wise. We'll open it with our bracket software. If you don't have the bracket software, download it from the link below, it's free. So we've got our HTML there. And we're going to want to open up our CSS file as well. So if we go into the CSS folder and open up our scrolling nav CSS file there, that's the one we've been working with. There we go. If we look at our index HTML, we'll scroll down. Here's our nav bar. Starts on line 38 and ends there on line 71. And don't worry about these links, we'll be customizing those at a later date when we've built more sections. If we scroll on down, here's our next section, 74, intro, and the class is intro section. So when we're working on this with our CSS, we want to put dot intro section. This right here is the text that's in there, and there at line 80 is the button, default button. If we go to the actual site itself, there's the text, there's the button, there's the heading. I'll just show you that again. There's the heading, H1, H1, H for heading. It goes through 1 through 6, 1 being the largest, 6 being the smallest. There's the text that's in between, P for paragraph. And there's the button we just mentioned, A, class button, button. So if we go to our CSS, we want to be working on this section, and as I said, the class is intro section. Let's scroll down to the bottom where we left off. We'll put a new title in, we'll call it hero section, / */ / and then the title in between. Makes it a lot easier to find it later on if we need to edit a bit. And let's just have a look there. It was intro section. You can actually copy that if you want to, or just type it out, however you like to do it. Just remember, you've got to put a dot or a full stop or a period, whatever you call it, in front, hero section. Then we'll open and close some curly brackets. Remember, all your CSS has to be in between 2 curly brackets, an opening and a closing. Now we want to put an image there, so I'm going to say background image. And again, don't worry about any of this code. I'll put a PDF of all this code we're doing today below this video. You can download it and use it however you wish. And what we want to do is, if I go back to our folder here, we created this image folder. There's our logo, there's our little favicon. I've got an image that I've selected to be our background image. If you're using a background image on a section, you want to make sure it's pretty large, at least 1920 wide, so that it displays properly on larger monitors. And like with all web images, you really want to optimize your images and make them the file sizes as small as possible. You can do this on free sites like Tiny PNG, or if you've got Photoshop, you can optimize it in there. So I've got an image that I created earlier. I'm just going to drag it over and put it in this file, and I've called it Hero. It's just a JPEG, and as you can see, it's 1920 by 1280, but put in whatever image you want there. That's a pretty good size to have. And remember, if you're putting in, if we're going to be using light colored text, either red or white, so I've made a dark image here. So now what we need to do is link to this image and tell that section to put this in the background there. So it's called hero.jpg, we know that much. So in our CSS here, we have to put URL to link to it, and then open and close some round brackets. Then we have to tell it to go back a couple of folders to look for it. So we're going to do ... And that should find our image folder. There it is, look. And we can just select that, and there is our hero JPEG. You can type this in if it doesn't find it. It should find it fine. There it is. And what do we want to do with the image? We want it to be centered, so we'll put background position. Colon. Center. Semicolon. And what do we want it to do? We want it to cover the background, so we want to, when I say cover, we want it to be, full screen. We want it to cover the whole area. So we'll put background size, colon, cover, semicolon. Just make sure I got that curly bracket on the end. There it is, it's down there. Let's bring that up a little bit. Tidy it up. There we go. And save, Control S. Now if we go back to our site and do a refresh, our image should appear here. There we have it. And you see all this here, this is all that writing that's already on there. There's our H tag, there's our P tag, and here's our button. So we'll edit all that in just a second. Just for reference, in the last video I mentioned, we did a background color here. If you wanted to have it transparent, again, I'm using Google Chrome. If you want to follow along, I recommend that you use Google Chrome as well. So we've got a white background at the moment. We can make that transparent. Yeah, I want to say border none. Get rid of that border there. This is if you want a transparent site there, it stands out quite nicely. The only problem with that is I'm not going to do that purely because when we've got writing and stuff down in this about section, it's going to go, it's going to make that look very busy up there because it's going to go behind it like that. I mean, there's many options. You could make it a black background if you wanted to. or dark background, however you want to do it. That way when you scroll up, it'll hide it. Or you could even give it a gradient color. I've got one here that I use quite often. Let's try putting that in. It's just black at the top and sort of radiates down. But again, I don't think it'll look quite as clear. So it looks like a mess, but you have to put various different ones in for Safari, Opera, Firefox, because they operate differently. Now, you can still see through it, but if we get to a white section, you'll see it's actually a gradient up there. But I don't think that's as clear looking. I know, personally, I just like the white one, so I'm just going to refresh that, put it back how it was. I'll include that gradient in your PDF of the code, just in case you decide you want to use it. Or with a lot of things, you can just Google it, CSS gradient, and you'll find one, and you can customize it to how you want. So anyway, back on track. Let's refresh this, get it back to how it was with our white background there. Okay, so we've got our background image there. That works for me. Now we need to organize our text here. So the next thing I want to do is make this text stand out here, because I really can't see it very well like that. So let's just turn it white for the time being. Let's have a look at our indexed HTML. Here it is, it's in the intro section. And it's the H1 and P tags. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give this actual section here an extra class. So all I'm going to do, it's a large 12 column there. I'm going to call it Hero T, sort of hero text, Hero-T. Call it whatever you want, but if you're following along, you might want to call it the same as me. So that's another class there. So if we go to our CSS, let's save that quickly, Control S, and to the CSS. Now if we put .hero-t, which is that class we've just created there, and we want to work on the H1 and also the P tag, open and close curly brackets, and we just want to make it a white color. White, which was, if you remember, hashtag FFF. It's actually 6 Fs, but with CSS 3, if it's 6 of all the same, you just need to put 3. So we'll do a quick save and back to our site. Now, if we refresh, this should become white. There we go. And these parts here, they're code blocks. I'm going to get rid of those because I think they're pretty ugly, but you can restyle them however you want. Okay, so let's put our own text in here. So if we go back to our brackets, to our index, I'm going to use a site for some filler text. It's called Lorem Ipsum, Lorem-Ipsum. You can just Google it. And what it is, it's filler text that's meaningless. And when you develop websites like I do, you use it for just filling in blocks of text to make it look like, so you can see what it looks like with text in there. So let's take a little section of here. We don't really want too much. It really doesn't matter. Take that much, get this one out of the way. And let's replace this. And we don't want that strong tag there. Strong means makes it bold. And I've killed the other one anyway, so we definitely don't want that. So all you want is your new text between the P, opening P tag, and the closing P tag. And I'll change that to That's the H1 tags there. You want to make sure when you do this, don't clip off any of those little brackets there. Okay, so let's just save that. Control S, back to our site, and refresh. There's our new text in there. Oh, well, let's give it another line of text just to make it a little more interesting here. And just save that. There we go, that's a little more interesting. Right, we don't want it up the top there, but that's fine. Let's organize this a little more. Let's decorate this. Let's make that a bit bigger. But let's just edit this in our browser. Actually want the H1 there. Let's edit that first. Here we are, H1. So at the moment it's 36 pics. Let's make that, say, 46. I don't know. Yeah, that's a bit bigger. I like that. And let's change the color to that red color that we've used, same as our logo, this color, and the same as our buttons there. So actually here, font size, and we want color. Just take that little checkbox off there. That's red. It's okay, this has gone great, but it's only because I've taken that checkbox off there. So we want that red. Let's capitalize it. Let's make it bigger. So text transform. Of course, you can just type it in as capitals, but this is the way to do it with CSS. Uppercase. Yep, that'll work. And let's give it a bit more of a gap between this and our text that we have here. So we'll say padding bottom. I don't know, let's try 15 pics. Good thing about this is you can experiment and you're not messing up your site. Yeah, maybe a little bit more even. Let's give it 20 pics. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be enough there. Gap there. Alright, well, let's copy that bit of code there. I'll take it all, but we're going to have to change that slightly because we're working on the Hero T section. We don't want all our H1 tags to do that. So, Control C to copy. Back to our CSS style sheet. And this time we just want to work on the Hero T H1. Let's just paste in what we've got here. I'll just copy that. We're going to be able to delete this in a moment, I believe. And put that there. And do a quick save. Because this is going to become redundant, this color, because we've changed the color there. And a quick refresh. There we have it. Let's get rid of the inspector just for the moment. Okay, that's standing out nicely. Let's make those a little bit bigger. And we'll give a bit of padding and a bit more space to that and the button. And of course, we're going to move all this down here in a little while. I was just going to directly write the CSS there, but let's just have a look at that P tag there. That's right here. Let's make the font size a little larger. Let's try 20 pics. Yeah, that looks pretty good. What's 25 look like? So we want it to stand out. We want to grab people when they look at it at first. Yeah, let's do 25. I may cut back on the amount of text I've got there. That's fine. And let's give it a little padding at the bottom just to push that button down a little bit. Again, we'll give it, what did we give that, 20? Let's give it 20 as well. Yeah, let's give that button a little more space. That's fine. So let's use that. I'll just copy that. Again, we're going to have to change it slightly when we put it in our CSS, custom CSS box. So copy that. Back to our custom CSS. I'll put that in there. This time we're doing hero TP. So it's in that hero T section, but we're working on the paragraph text. And we don't need that margin because we didn't change that. Font size, padding margin, we did change. And now, because we've done these individually, we can get rid of that because I just did that to make it stand out a little more. So we'll delete that one. Don't need it. It will have overwritten it anyway because it reads from the bottom up of a style sheet. So it's, you know, it's a lot of, the one that's nearest it is the one that overrides everything else. So let's save that. And let's get rid of that. Close the inspector, just a quick refresh, that should stay the same. Oh, hello, what's going on there? Of course, we did not give it a color. We've got to give it a color. Font size 25. We erased the color that we had there, which was fa. Okay, save that again. Back to the site. Refresh, that should bring that out. Okay, I'm going to cut this off, I guess after there, before the said. In fact, after the bit I just added earlier. Okay, let's go back to the brackets, back to our index HTML. Where's that little said thing? There, right there. Let's make that a period. Or let's make that an exclamation. It really doesn't matter, this is just for effect. Obviously you want to write something in your site that means something to somebody, that a catchy little subheading there. Okay, let's save that. Back to the site. There we go, that's more like it. To make it stand out a little bit more, let's make this first couple of words there. Let's make those red. And that's pretty easy to do. What we'll do is I'll wrap those little words here, these two first words here, in the span tag. So that's SPAN, and close it. What I'll do is I'll cut those. And stick it in the middle of the span tags there. Now I can say hero T span and give that a separate color. So let's just go, let's save that, Control S, and go to our CSS. And it's hero T. This time we're working on the span, SPAN. Open close some curlies. And I just really want to give it that nice red color that we were using before, which is that one there. So let's just copy that. A bit of space between those two. And a quick save. Back to the site. And for some reason that didn't work. That didn't work because I haven't got a dot on the front there after telling everybody to make sure they got a dot on there. Let's quick save. Back to the site. This time it should work. That should turn red. Called debugging. There we go. That's turned red. Alrighty, that's looking starting to take shape. Now we want to push this section down. This is going to be a long video. I apologize, but go make yourself a cup of tea, cup of coffee, take a break, come back. Okay, let's push this section down to the middle here. Just inspect it quickly. And this is our Hero T section right here. As you can see, it highlights it. So while I'm doing that, I'll show you another little trick. If you want to, if your text isn't standing out or your picture is too light for your text or something like that, you can give your Hero T section, or whatever you've called your section, a background color. Just say black. It doesn't stand out much, but you can see the text really stands out there. And you can also make it opaque so you can see partially through it. So if we use that, it'll change it to an RGBA color. And if I just pull this down, you can see you can still see through it and what have you. It's real easy to do. That's just another option if you didn't have a clear text on your background image there. Anyway, let's go ahead and pull this section down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give it some margin at the top. I'll just erase that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a margin at the top, which is going to push it down. We'll say margin top. And rather than using a pixel value this time, I'm going to use a percentage value. And the reason for that is if I'm viewing it on a smaller screen and I've given it 300, 400 pixels margin from the top, it'll push it too far down on smaller screens. Whereas if I use a percentage, it'll scale it accordingly. So I'll say margin top 15%. Let's have a look. Probably do a little bit more than that. When you've got the inspector open, you're using these margins here, kind of messes it up a little bit. So let's give it 20%. I'll close it so we can see. Yeah, I think that's going to work actually, 20%. So if we go back to our CSS style sheet, and we're working on the Hero T section itself. I didn't actually copy it that time. You can copy it across if you want to. And do what we have been doing. So I'll just say margin top 20%. And quick save. Back to our site. Refresh. That should stay where it is. Okay, that's starting to look good. Let's actually style our button now. So if we inspect that one, that's the default sort of value for a button right there. There it is, button default. What I want to do, I want to give it a background color the same as that nice red that we've been using for all of our other things. So I'll paste that in there. Okay, and the border wants to be the same thing. And we'll make the actual font color itself, make that white again, FFF. A lot of designers will tell you you shouldn't ever use white really, but I find it works for me. Just use a slightly off white, but I haven't got a problem with white. Okay, I think I want to make that text a little bit bigger. Let's try 25. Which I think was what that P was, wasn't it? That our paragraph text. Yep. That's going to grab your attention, isn't it? That's fine. And I want to make a little more space around that text there with padding. So I'll have more space at the top and the sides, basically make it a little fatter. And What I tend to use with a lot of my buttons is padding 10, 15, so let's try that. 10 pixels, 15 pixels. Yeah, that's going to do it. Of course, I'm going to change this text. There's too much text for me in this right here. So let's just copy this across button default from the dot to the end of the curly brackets as usual, and go back to our custom CSS. I'll give it a new title because we may want to style some more buttons later on. So / */ title in between. And paste that CSS in there. Okay, and we'll save that. What I'm going to want to do is I'll change the text in that button in a minute. But if we look at this site here, let's get rid of that inspector so we can see it properly. You see that's overlapping, it's just because we've got the inspector up here. There we go. I'm going to change that so it's smaller with different text here. I'm going to put another one right beside it. So if we go to our HTML file, our index HTML file, here on line 80 is our button. This is the text at the moment, so I'm going to have this one say learn more. Then I'm just going to copy from the end of the A tag to the beginning of the A tag there. Control C, drop down one, and paste it just below it. So we've got two buttons that all look exactly the same there. But here I'm going to put contact us. And if we look here, if we go along, you see the href, that's a link right there. This is linking to the About section, section ID About. When we do an anchor tag on a page, we give the section an ID for it to link to. You just put a little hashtag in front of it, then the section name. This one I want to link to the contact. I'm not going to scroll down there because I'm pretty sure it's called contact. Well, actually I can see it right here, it says contact. So this one I'm going to put contact. Now let's save that. And back to the site. And refresh. Now you see we got two buttons. Let's make sure they work. This one should take us just below. Yeah. And this one should take us down to the contact section that we haven't actually created yet, but the bare bones is there. So that's fine. What I'd like to do, I'd like to see a little more space between these buttons. And I'm going to change that hover effect. That's okay, that white, that's the kind of default one, or grey, light grey, whatever it is. But I want to change it so we've got a red outline and red text, I believe. So let's go back to our CSS. And the first thing that I wanted to do is put a bit of space between those buttons. So I'm just going to give it some margin on the right hand side. Margin right. Let's say 15 pixels probably do it. I could have done this in the browser just to see, but let's do that, semicolon. Now what I'm going to do to create my hover effect is copy this whole thing, paste it just down below, put a colon after the default, and this is really important, no space, and write hover, H-O-V-E-R, to create my hover effect. Now the color, that's the color of the text. Let's make that red color. And background color, I want that to be transparent. Border color, that can stay the same. Padding, margin, that's fine too, that can stay there. In fact, we probably don't need those, but I'll leave them there anyway. Control S to save that. And back to our site. Quick refresh. There we are, we've got more space between the two buttons, and when I hover over, that's more like it. What I'd like to do, that's pretty much what I had in mind. I'm just going to make that border slightly bigger. I think I'll give it 2 pixels or something like that. I think that's 1 pixel at the moment. Let's go back to our CSS. And here it says the border color. Let's do just a border. I'll give it 2 pixels, so it's 2 pixels thick or wide, however you want to say it. It's solid. Oops, I missed a D off the solid there. That will not work. Solid, it's fine. And we'll replace that there. Quick save. Back to our site. Refresh. There we go. It's a slightly bigger border. I mean, you can give it 3 pixels if you want to. Or what? Obviously, it's your site. You do what you want to do. So there we have it. That's our hero section. I'm happy with that. Let's just make sure it's going to work on our mobile. So if we hit our inspector again, F12 or right click, and over here on the left hand side we've got a little icon that allows us to view it on different devices. iPhone 6 Plus, that looks fine, works for me. Everything's there as we need it. So let's get out of the inspector. I'll just close our mobile devices. There we have it. There's our hero section. I'm sorry this video was so long. Again, the code is downloadable in a PDF file below this video. This has been Jamie from System 22 and Great Web Design. If you're enjoying this series of videos, please subscribe to our channel. I'll see you in the next video.